Welcome back, everyone. If you're aiming to pass the CompTIA A Core 2 exam, practice is your best weapon. This test covers operating systems, security, software troubleshooting, and IT procedures. So, the more questions that you tackle, the stronger your skills become. In this video, we're going to go through another set of Core 2 practice questions using Skilltestpro, giving you the hands-on experience that you need to walk into that exam with confidence. All right, so let's get started. We're going to start with this one. A user is unable to access a corporate VPN from their laptop unless they first manually connect to the Wi-Fi hotspot. What might be wrong, and how do you fix it? The VPN client is misconfigured. Reconfigure to connect over any network. The hotspot has a captive portal. Accept the portal before VPN. The Wi-Fi profile is set to connect only when in range. Set it to connect automatically. The Ethernet adapter priority is higher than Wi-Fi. Change the metric. Or the laptop's firewall is blocking the VPN. Disable the firewall. The correct answer is the Wi-Fi profile is set to connect only when in range. Set it to connect automatically. Operational procedures include user support and networking. If Wi-Fi doesn't auto-connect, the VPN client won't have a network to route through. Changing the Wi-Fi profile to auto-connect ensures that when the user arrives in range, the laptop connects and then the VPN can start. The captive portal is possible, but if it always works after manual connect, it's likely a profile setting. All right, next question. A desktop user's profile is corrupted. They cannot log in, but a temporary profile is loaded instead. What is the root cause, and what should the technician do? The user's password expired. Reset the password. The profile's ntuser.dat file is corrupt. Rename the corrupt profile and let Windows rebuild a new one and then migrate the data. The disk is out of space. Clear up disk space and reboot. The registry is corrupted. Restore the registry from backup. Or the system is infected. Scan for malware. The correct answer is the profile's ntuser.dat file is corrupt. Rename the corrupt profile and let Windows rebuild a new one and then migrate the data. Under software troubleshooting, corrupted user profiles often stem from a broken ntuser.dat in the user's profile folder. By renaming or removing the problematic profile, Windows will create a new profile. Then you can migrate the user's important files. Checking for malware or disk space is valid, but not as directly tied to profile corruption. All right, next question. A user reports that on their Windows 11 machine, certain applications launch, but then immediately close with no error message. Event Viewer shows an access denied error for C drive program files. What's the best resolution? Disable UAC, which is user account control. Run the application as administrator permanently. Reinstall the apps in a folder outside of program files, e.g. D drive apps. Fix NTFS permissions on program files so that the user has read and execute. Or disable Windows Defender. The correct answer is fix the NTFS permissions on program files so that the user has read execute. The software troubleshooting domain in Core 2 includes permission problems. If program files has incorrect permissions, then non-admin users may be blocked from executing programs. Restoring correct NTFS permissions resolves the issue safely. Disabling UAC or Defender compromises security. And moving apps is less ideal. All right, next question. A user's Windows PC shows a blue screen of death, or BSOD, with a stop code of IRQL not less or equal when inserting a new USB peripheral. What should the technician do first? Replace the CPU? Update or roll back the USB driver? Run SFC scan now? Reinstall Windows? Or disable antivirus? The correct answer is update or roll back the USB driver. This stop code often indicates a faulty or incompatible driver, in this case, likely the USB driver. The Core 2 exam objectives cover software troubleshooting and error codes. Updating or rolling back fixes the instability without drastic OS reinstallation. All right, next one. A technician deploys a shared folder on a Windows 11 server for a team. After setting share permissions, some team members still cannot write to it, even though NTFS permissions allow full control. What is the likely problem? The network cable is faulty. The folder is encrypted with EFS. The folder has reached its storage quota. The share level permissions are set to read only for those users. Or the SSD has failed. The correct answer is the share level permissions are set to read only for those users. Core 2 software troubleshooting and OS concepts include understanding NTFS versus share permissions. Even if NTFS permissions allow full control, restrictive share permissions, e.g. read only, will block write access. The fix is to adjust share permissions appropriately. All right, next question. A developer workstation runs Windows 11 and Linux dual boot via grub. The user complains that after a Windows update, grub menu no longer appears. What likely happened, and how do you fix it? The update installed a new Linux kernel, boot into recovery and reinstall grub. The BIOS boot order was changed, set the Linux EFI entry first in UEFI settings. Fast startup disabled grub, turn it off in Windows. Secure boot was enabled, disable secure boot. Or the Windows update corrupted the EFI partition, recover from the backup. The correct answer is the BIOS boot order was changed. Set the Linux EFI entry first in UEFI settings. OS upgrade and boot issues are covered by Core 2 objectives. A common issue is that Windows updates rewrite the default UEFI boot entry, making Windows boot first and bypassing grub. Reordering the UEFI boot entries so that Linux EFI entry comes first restores grub. All right, moving on. A company issues a mobile device to field workers. One user complains that sensitive corporate emails remain on their device after they leave employment. What security control should have been in place? A strong passcode? VPN-only email access? Remote wipe capability via MDM? Email caching disabled? Or biometric lock only? The correct answer is remote wipe capability via MDM. Operational procedures objectives include device policies, MDM or mobile device management, and data removal. With MDM, you can remotely wipe devices when someone leaves, preventing data leakage. Passcodes alone don't remove data. VPN only protects in transit. Caching disabled may help, but it doesn't remove existing data. All right, next question. A user's PC is joined to a corporate domain. They report that they cannot open some shared network folders which they previously could. Their account is unchanged. What's the most likely cause? The network share has moved to a different server? Their computer's OS is corrupted? Reinstall Windows? The VPN is not connected? Their Windows license expired? Or their domain account lost the necessary NTFS share permissions? The correct answer is their domain account lost necessary NTFS share permissions. Access control, Core 2 security, is a critical objective. Permissions issues are a common cause of access loss. The user's permissions may have been changed. It's less likely to be OS corruption or license expiry. And if network share had moved, many users would complain, not just this one. All right, next question. A finance department user complains about repeated pop-up warnings from Windows Defender that their disk is full, even though they have plenty of free space. The warnings mention insufficient space for temporary files. What's causing this, and how do you fix it? Is it the temp and TMP environment variables are misconfigured? Windows Defender is misreporting, reinstall it. The paging file is too small, increase the page file size. The OS is corrupted, repair and install Windows. Or the user's browser cache is full, clear the browser cache. The correct answer is the temp and TMP environment variables are misconfigured. Defender or other system processes use temp folders heavily. If the environment variables point to a partition with low free space, Windows may raise false disk full for temporary file warnings. Redirecting temp TMP to a drive with more space solves this without reinstalling. All right, next one. A user calls after clicking a link in an email that looked suspicious. They immediately entered their login credentials, but then they closed the window afterward. What steps should be taken next to ensure company security? Ignore it, since no damage is reported. Change the user's password and run a full anti-malware scan. Reinstall Windows. Disable the user's account permanently. Or clear the browser history and cache. The correct answer is change the user's password and run a full anti-malware scan. Incident response and chain of custody are in the Core 2 objectives. The technician must assume that the credentials are compromised, reset the password, and then scan for malware. Simply clearing cache doesn't mitigate risk, and reinstalling or disabling the account is overkill without further evidence. All right, you guys are doing great. Let's keep going. A user complains that they can't install a licensed software package on their Mac OS machine because of licensing restrictions. The software requires volume licensing, and the user is using a personal Apple ID. What should the technician do? Ask the user to purchase a personal license? Use Apple Business Manager to assign the volume license to the computer? Use Time Machine to roll back Mac OS to an earlier version? Create a generic Apple ID and install via that? Or repartition the drive and install a different OS? The correct answer is use Apple Business Manager to assign the volume license to the computer. The operational procedures domain includes licensing, EULA, and volume licensing. For Mac OS in business environments, volume licensed software is distributed via Apple Business Manager or similar tools. Mapping licenses to devices, not individual Apple IDs. Rolling back OS or changing OS is unnecessary. Asking to buy a personal license is less efficient. All right, moving on. A help desk technician is asked to secure a set of laptops used by salespeople who travel. The laptops store sensitive customer data. So which of the following is the best combination to secure data at rest and in transit? Use BitLocker on the drives and enforce HTTPS-only connections. Use strong passwords and VPN in transit. Use TPM without BitLocker and require VPN. Encrypt only the home folder and restrict web browsing to secure sites. Or use EFS, encrypting file system, with password-only protection. The correct answer is use BitLocker on the drives and enforce HTTPS-only connections. Core 2 security objectives include data encryption and secure communications. BitLocker provides full disk encryption, meaning protects data at rest, while enforcing HTTPS ensures encrypted data in transit. TPM only without BitLocker doesn't encrypt data. EFS is less full coverage than BitLocker, and password only is weaker. All right, next one. An employee's Windows machine has been infected by a ransomware variant that encrypted many files. Their organization has offline backups, but these are 2 weeks old. After restoring the backup, the user still sees encrypted files in a shared network folder. What should the technician do? Inform the user that the encrypted files cannot be recovered? Run anti-malware software across the network share to decrypt the files? Delete the encrypted files, recopy from the backup, and then monitor for reinfection? Ask the user to pay the ransom? Or restore from a different backup and disable network sharing? The correct answer is delete the encrypted files, recopy from the backup, and then monitor for reinfection. The security objectives include malware removal, backup strategies, and incident response. Since you have a clean backup, restoring from backup is correct. But the presence of encrypted files in a shared folder suggests potential reinfection, or that the ransomware also reached the share. Deleting the encrypted files and restoring from clean backup and then closely monitoring ensures integrity. Paying ransom is not best practice. Running anti-malware likely won't decrypt, and alternate backups may not be more current. All right, next question. A company wants to enforce multi-factor authentication, or MFA, on all of its workstations. One user complains that after enabling MFA, they are constantly locked out because their phone's offline. What's the best solution to maintain security while improving the user experience? Is it disable MFA for that user? Use a hardware token, e.g. YubiKey, as a second factor? Rely only on SMS-based MFA? Lower the MFA enforcement policy to only on password change? Or use a cloud-based identity provider with offline code generation? The correct answer is use a cloud-based identity provider with offline code generation, e.g. Microsoft Authenticator. The A+ Core 2 objectives include authentication methods like MFA. Switching to an authenticator app that supports time-based one-time passwords, or TOTP, works even when the phone is offline. This retains strong security without disabling MFA or weakening policy. Hardware tokens are valid, but less user-friendly and more costly. All right, let's keep going. A remote user calls complaining that their Windows PC's antivirus continually blocks a legitimate internal business application. They say that it worked fine before a recent security update. So what should the technician do first? Uninstall the antivirus, reinstall the business app, and then re-enable the antivirus? Downgrade the antivirus to its pre-update version? Disable real-time scanning permanently? Add the business app's executable to the antivirus exclusion list? Or report the issue to the application vendor and then wait for a patch? The correct answer is add the business app's executable to the antivirus exclusion list. The security domain of Core 2 includes understanding exceptions and exclusions. If a legitimate business app is being blocked post-update, the correct short-term fix is to create an exclusion so that the AV stops interfering, while still maintaining protection for the rest of the system. Uninstalling or disabling the antivirus compromises security. Downgrading or waiting for a vendor patch may be risky or slow. All right, next question. A Linux workstation in a development environment is refusing to boot after the root partition was resized. The system now drops into a grub rescue prompt. What is the most likely reason and resolution? The grub.cfg file was lost. Restore it from backup. UUIDs changed when resizing. Update etc fstab and grub.cfg with correct UUIDs. The partition table was corrupted. Run fsck to fix. The bootloader was overwritten. Reinstall grub. Or the kernel version is incompatible. Downgrade kernel. The correct answer is UUIDs changed when resizing. When you resize Linux partitions, the file system's UUID, or Universal Unique Identifier, may change. Grub and etc fstab rely on UUIDs, and mismatch causes grub rescue mode. Knowing OS installation and configuration is critical per the A+ Core 2 objectives. Correcting the UUIDs in both places often resolves boot issues without reinstalling grub or the OS. All right, let's keep going. A user complains that their Mac OS laptop is running slowly after a recent upgrade. On inspection, you find that the APFS, or Apple File System volume, is fragmented because of frequent large file edits. What can you recommend to improve performance? Reformat the disk as HFS Plus and then migrate the data? Enable trim and then defragment the APFS volume? Create a sparse image and move large files there? Use Time Machine to restore to a fresh APFS volume and limit large file edits? Or disable local snapshots? The correct answer is enable trim and defragment the APFS volume. Under the OS objectives, knowledge of Mac OS file systems, or APFS, is required. APFS supports trim for SSDs, and occasionally fragmented large files can slow performance. Enabling trim helps the underlying SSD, and APFS includes its own defragmentation heuristics. Reformatting to HFS Plus is counterproductive. It's an older file system. Creating sparse images or disabling snapshots, it doesn't address fragmentation properly. All right, let's keep going. A lab manager needs to deploy a customized Windows 11 image to 50 identical desktops. The customization includes pre-installed software, policies, and drivers. Which deployment method will minimize manual effort and maximize consistency? Manually install Windows on each desktop and then configure them one by one? Use system restore on one machine and then copy its C drive to others? Use third-party cloning software via USB stick and then clone each desktop? Ask each user to log in and run a PowerShell script to install everything? Or use Windows Deployment Services, or WDS, to push the customized image over the network? And the correct answer is use Windows Deployment Services, or WDS, to push the customized image over the network. The Core 2 objectives include OS installation, image deployment, and upgrade considerations. WDS enables a network-based deployment of a pre-configured Windows image, reducing manual work and ensuring uniform configuration across all machines. Cloning manually via USB is more error-prone and time-consuming. System restore and scripts are not as reliable for full driver software provisioning. All right, let's keep going. A small business is upgrading a fleet of laptops from Windows 10 to Windows 11. One user's laptop uses a custom application that only runs when installed on an NTFS volume. The current user profile and data are on an exFAT external drive. What's the best approach to preserve the app functionality after upgrade? Install Windows 11 directly to the internal drive, ignore the exFAT data, and reinstall the app? Convert the exFAT external disk to NTFS without data loss using convert utility. Copy the exFAT data to a network share, wipe the drive, install Windows 11, and then copy back. Up-level the file system to reFS using Windows 11 upgrade. Or leave the external drive as exFAT and then run the app from there. The correct answer is convert the exFAT external disk to NTFS without data loss using convert utility. The Core 2 objectives include understanding file systems, NTFS, exFAT, reFS, etc. Since the application depends upon NTFS and the data is already on the exFAT drive, converting to NTFS preserves compatibility and it avoids data loss. Using a network share or reinstalling the app manually is more cumbersome, and reFS conversion isn't supported by the convert command. Running the app on exFAT would break it. And finally, let's do one more. A user reports that their Windows 11 PC slows down significantly during boot, and many startup apps fail to load. Disk management shows that the system reserved partition is near full. What is the most likely cause and best fix? The system reserved partition is too small. Increase its size via disk management. The recovery partition is incorrectly identified as the system reserved. Reassign the partitions. The EFI boot partition is full of old Windows boot entries. Clean up unused boot entries with BCD edit. The page file is too small. Enlarge the page file to make space. Or the BIOS is outdated. Update the BIOS to improve boot performance. The correct answer, the EFI boot partition is full of old Windows boot entries. Clean up unused boot entries with BCD edit. According to A+ Core 2 objectives, one must know OS installation and boot method issues. When the EFI, or system reserved partition, is filled with stale boot entries, it can prevent proper bootloader initialization. Using BCD edit to remove obsolete entries all frees up space so that the loader can correctly load startup apps. Simply resizing partitions is risky and it may not address the root cause. And updating BIOS or page file, it doesn't resolve cluttered boot entries. And that is another round of Core 2 practice questions complete. Well done for sticking with it, everybody. Remember, success on the A+ exam comes from repetition. The more practice questions that you take, the sharper and faster that you'll be when it comes. Skilltestpro has a full bank of realistic exam-style questions, and so I've added the link in the description and in the pinned comment so that you can keep training. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you in the next one.